Honestly?
Yeah. I want you to shoot with us here.
I'm going to shoot with you.
Yeah.
You know what? I know there were some people who would have liked me to have a more substantial role.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, I can do that. Like that's what Brian Gewirtz. That's a name a lot of your listeners be familiar with. I did have an idea for something that'd be a little more serious. But the truth is, the show it was a feel good show, and then they hit him with something serious at the end, which is going to allow everybody to make quite a bit of money. And Brian said, we couldn't get to that. We talked about it. I said, listen, I'm a phone call away. We can do that in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, or whatever the case may be. And I enjoyed it, man. You could see on my face that I liked breaking out the moves. There's something about watching a guy who can't dance try to dance that it has ratings written all over it.
I think you look just as good as Brodus Clay out there as far as dance moves.
Do you remember when Brodus Clay, when he first came out, his character was a big gay bear and they had to ease off? Like he was like rubbing up against people. Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course. He would gyrate on people. He humped JTG at one point.
And they eased up on that real quick.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
I don't know I don't really understand the gimmick of Brodus Clay. I've heard that it's maybe just a little bit of a practical joke on him.
No, I asked him a while back because I got to know Brodus a little bit when he was in FCW like in 2007. And one thing, remember these guys, some of these guys have been developmental for years. So when you get a gimmick, you need to run with it. I had a chance to address the guys for the first time since 2007, just a few weeks ago. And one of the things I wanted to stress that it's easy to get down, and guys have to take a certain amount of satisfaction getting to where they are. I mean, that's easier said than believed because it's really frustrating. But I asked Brodus about it because he was supposed to come out as the killer, and he was like, "Man, Vince just found out I was funny." He hadn't gotten the memo, and so they redid this character. And the fact that I was, actually coming out as Brodus Clay in the UK, it's a pretty good sign. Like when I went up to him, 3 weeks after that gimmick started, I was like, "Hey man, would you mind if I kind of, played off that in the UK?" He was like, "You want to play off my gimmick in the UK?" So I found the tracksuit or whatever it is he wears, but I couldn't find the hat. So I found myself actually paying Amazon for a Santa Claus pimp hat. That was what that was that I wore in the UK.
Wow.
And I would do a thing where I would come out to my music and then I would pretend to be offended because I was no longer a wrestler. I was an artist, and the only way they were going to get an artist of my magnitude to come back out. Bernsey saw it. He did the dance with me. He was one of the...
I must admit, he ran the idea by me, and I'm sitting backstage, and I'm there going, you know what? No one else can get me to do this. He wanted me to be a fun cat.
Of course.
And it's very funny as well, like almost the hypocrisy of me going, mate, I'm a serious comic. I've got respect. I've got credentials, mate. You want me to go up and... But sure enough, the moment the music kicked, I was straddling a man.
Of course. Why not?
Throwing my cleavage in their face. You've never seen me happier on stage as well doing this show because it is like it's stuff that just won't work anywhere else.
Brendon Burns as a Funkadactyl. I like that. I like that. Mick, I have to ask you, we read a lot of stuff, on the internet about why you wouldn't be used in a more serious fashion or why we don't see more of Mick Foley.
Yeah.
And a lot of us big Mick Foley fans. So I thought I'd ask you, all that stuff about Triple H, I'm sure you've read some of that stuff or people have asked you before about you and Triple H not getting along. Where does that stem from? What's that about?
Well, you know what? I think that I think that was a story circulating in 2008. I'm not sure how it got back out there. I think he just honestly felt, he owes it to the company to give his honest opinion, not to say, hey, I worked with this guy and he helped me in such and such a way. There's a really good case to be made for the fact that I don't look very imposing anymore. I mean, around that time, 2008, my wife and I did Meals on Wheels for 8 months, and I was like the fill-in guy. My wife had the route, and I would do it with her, and then I would get called to fill in for people who couldn't make their route. And so these elderly people were seeing me for the first time. And in 8 months, not one old person looked intimidated by me. If this had been 1992 and Cactus Jack showed up at the door, you'd have some, you'd just have some fire. If I was doing it in Florida, I would have been shot under the stand your ground law. A guy showing up at the house. I don't have that same look. I mean, it's great that the wrestling fans think of me so highly. People have been around a while. I believe, and if I was accompanied by like my a 5-minute entrance theme, with highlights every time I came out, maybe you could sell it to the people that I was a credible threat. But really after after the deal with Edge and Flair and Tommy Dreamer and Funk. I think that's a pretty good call on his part that my usefulness as a major threat
and
was used up.
If I may add as well, you really don't have to worry about Mick, because as one career and industry is kind of winding down for him, I have never seen an industry more ready to embrace a man. Like every comic is coming up to me going, "Are you doing that thing with Mick Foley?" And it just makes sense. And to the extent where as well, all of my friends are less surprised that we're doing this than me. Like, they are all like going, it doesn't remotely surprise us that he got into stand-up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't remotely surprise us that you two met. And it doesn't remotely surprise us that you're on the road together at all. And so as one industry is winding down, there is another also ready to embrace him. And, I mean, it really is fun talking to these people that, I mean, they're almost chanting no more matches at him. No one wants to see Mick get hurt again.
Yeah.
I think.
There's a sadist like you guys who want to see me back in danger.
No, I don't want to see that. I just think that we could see more of you on TV. I mean, obviously you're a great stand-up comedian, a commissioner, something, because you can get on the mic, you can cut promos, you can get people over, and you can make it worth watching. When some of the other people, John Laurinaitis, that do that kind of role are not entertaining. They can't cut promos and they can't put sentences together.
It's a dying breed almost with guys that can't talk anymore.
Well, listen, I appreciate it. I've got a good role within the company, and it kind of amuses me in a way. Like, I had a good talk with Triple H backstage at the last this past Raw, and I was thinking about those rumors, and I'm like, this is the guy who hired me, and one thing I resolved and promised myself after the last time, where I did play, TNA and WWE off each other, is that I would not do that at all. And even when I told Terry Taylor, that I wanted to leave early, and we, reached an agreement, he said, he said, we'll do it in such a way that you can get the best deal for yourself with WWE. I said, no, man, I don't want to do that. I said, I'm pretty sure I can work something out with him, but I don't want it to I'll never do that again, where it's like a highest bidder type thing. Mm-hmm. And so we dealt in good faith with each other for months, and even to the point where the holdup was the WWE attorneys were looking at the contract. They're like, what do you mean he doesn't have to do something if he doesn't want to, It's like, what if he keeps saying no to everything? And then Hunter was like, well, that's where the, the trust comes in. Like, if Mick turns down 5 or 6 things in a row, we're going to say, hey, we need to reexamine this. But I was just asked on Monday about going to Saudi Arabia, and the first thing I thought was, I said, hey, I'd love to do it. And outside of that, I said, maybe I can get on a transport plane as long as I'm in that area of the country, and go over and visit our troops and do some comedy for them, because I really think, if I sit down and I explain how they stand to benefit, whether it's a one-man show, or whether it's going and visiting troops, or whatever the case might be, that as an entertainment company, WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, they're a multifaceted entertainment company that doesn't have any foot in stand-up right now, and it's easy. I mean, to make that move, it's
you'll have to keep me quiet though.
Yeah. Brendon's. Let me make sure. The comedy I do shows a warmth and love for the company that still pays me and puts my kids through college.
I don't have to toe the party line. I say whatever the hell I want about whoever the hell I want.
But this is a guy who acted. He wanted a job in WWE as a writer, and I did. I mean, I talked to head of talent. I talked to Stephanie McMahon, and I prefaced what I said by saying,